Welcome everyone to this webinar. We're calling it a webinar.
It's 5 o'clock.
The word webinar has been abused a lot after this pandemic because there was a huge wave of webinars that happened at the start of the pandemic. And then in about 4 months, people became very tired of webinars because previously a webinar used to be a non-in-person meeting. But now the webinars and the regular calls that we are having with our colleagues has all become the same. So every work meeting has become a webinar. So, and I have my personal reservations about calling this a webinar because here I am doing it on Zoom, and from Zoom is connected to YouTube and YouTube Studio, and from YouTube Studio, it's live streaming to YouTube. So in that sense, there are at least two walls separating you and me. Wait, it's you and me. There's at least two walls, separating. And for me, I would have certainly loved to have you all into this call, and so that it would be very interactive. But we're going to do that from the next time, and let's live with this one. And before I go ahead, I just want to check with my Moolya team. Am I good to get started off? Should we wait for a minute more, or we're good to go? We're good to go. All good, all well. Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for that, Amit Vyas. Fabulous. So I'm glad you are here to listen to me. And first things first, I hope you and your family have been doing well, and I really hope and pray that we all continue to do well. And my best wishes, to you all for that. And today we are talking about how to assure quality. It's fascinating. The reason is that I wrote a blog post about it, and I thought here is an old man writing something that the young kids don't want to read about. And it's very interesting that people are finding it relevant and interesting. So this old man started to feel good about it. And I thought it's good to explain this a little bit more, because what I wrote was a high-level summary of what I have learned and what I have understood about this whole concept of assuring quality. Now, as you're listening to me, I want you to answer this question. What in your life can you really assure? What in your life can you really assure? Can you assure that you are going to live 100 years? No. Can we all assure that we all will be alive tomorrow? No. I mean, we want to be, but can we all assure? No, we can't. Can we all assure that we will have permanent jobs? No, there's nothing like that. Can we all assure that we will be able to do something in a certain way at a certain time? No. We can't assure anything in our lives. I don't understand what does this word assure mean. When we can't assure our own life, which is supposed to be in our control, our hand, we are trying to assure something else in our lives. And I've also used this word. So I'm an equal culprit. The good news for you is I'm an equal culprit. Whatever sins you have committed, I have committed to. So that should give you some solace. So for me, uh, I've used this word assure. I'm not talking in the context of quality assurance yet, but I'm saying I have used this word assure. I assure you, I will do that. What I mean by that is, I believe I am going to be alive till that time that I can do that and get this result. So, in a way, the assurance that we give is a kind of a commitment rather than assurance itself. So I think it's better to use the word commitment instead of the word assure in many of our life cases. Like, for example, my wife tells me to do something, and I say, "Yeah, I'll do it," and I'm busy working, and she says, "You've not yet done that," and I say, "Well, I assure you that I will do it by end of today," and uh, rather, instead of saying, "I assure you," which sometimes I have not been able to. I, I think it's a better idea to say, I commit to doing it by end of today. So there is a commitment, but there is no assurance, because, to me, this whole word of assurance is just looking so impossible. It's just looking so impossible for us human beings. And we are saying it as though we have the world in our control. We have everything in our control. And imagine how many sales folks would have assured their bosses one day before pandemic that we are going to hit our next quarterly target because we have everything in sight, and then their company went kaput. So when we use the word assure, we are assuming that under the favorable circumstances, we will be able to do something. Right? Now, that's the word assurance. And that's my understanding or my lack of understanding of the word assurance. So with that, let's then move on to, in the world of software, what does assurance mean? In the world of software. Now, when we talk about the world of software, let's talk about software itself. So here's how the application that you're testing is working, right? There's a hardware, and there's a firmware, and there are drivers, and there's this kernel, and then there is your OS layer, then your application layer, and then you might be building an application using some other layers of software. So if you look at the application that you're building or testing, there are about 5 to 6 layers below it, and you have no control over that. Absolutely no control over that. So all software that we are largely building and testing is sitting on something that is already volatile, super volatile. Now, when we say we have we have tested this, or we are sure that this works. How many millions of times this has happened that it did not work on others' machine, others' phone, other devices, an update came by, something that was working all the while, one code merge screwed up everything. This continues to happen. So what we mean by assuring something in the software context is assuming that all my underlying conditions are going to remain the same way that happened when I ran a test. I assure you that you will get to see the same result that I saw. Interesting, right? So the software that we are testing is sitting on multiple layers of volatility, and there are, again, environmental conditions. Like, for instance, when the mobile networks were evolving and the speed of mobile networks were also evolving, we saw app crashes in certain networks. It would not happen in another network. It would not happen for it would happen for a certain service provider. It would not happen for another service provider, depending on the type of encryption they have used. And we tested in lab conditions, or we tested even in real network, but sitting inside a lab, and our users and our customers were using it on the go. So when you get into a metro, or when you get into a bus or a train or a flight, you see people using the apps that you're building and testing on the move. Now, how many of us are really testing these things on the move? We are testing it inside a lab, and then we're saying we are going to assure that this will work when a metro is going through a tunnel. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It does not. It does not. Absolutely. It does not work for you. It does not work for me. Now, when you open, Twitter, and you search for bugs, or you search for crash, or you search for hang, you'll see a number of people reporting something is not working for them. The most popular ones. And if you're following Michael Bolton, you will know he's the one who's reported the maximum number of iTunes bugs, to my understanding, and he still continues to report that, right? So there is a wild environment out there that is hard for us to test or assure, and yet we carry around these titles of quality assurance. Now, I want to again go back to this word assure, right? Now, what we are saying again is that, hey, in a certain condition, we assure you, or we confirm to you, or we want you to believe that this will happen. Now, so you're essentially saying that the environment matters, right? Like, the environment does matter. Like, for instance, right now you're listening to me. If either your internet connection or my internet connection goes off, which can happen, which can absolutely happen, then you're not listening to the webinar, nor am I live on YouTube. So what we are saying is, we will do this webinar from 5 to 6:30 p.m., assuming all these things are okay, favoring. Now, how am I assuring you that my internet connection is going to be stable and fine and all of that stuff? No, I can't do that. But what I can assure you is, at least the power in my home is going to stay. So I have a UPS system. My laptop is fully charged. I have a UPS system which supports my internet, network routers and Wi-Fi. So this is the environment that I can assure. But if the ISP drops my connection, 5:15. If the ISP drops my connection, then no matter what assurance I give to you that I'm going to be live, I'm going to talk to you, it's just not going to work. So I've done everything in my environment, in my capacity to assure you that I am going to be live from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Great. Okay. So now we have understood that the environment, the setup of the environment, the conduciveness to assure something is very important. If the ISP was under my control, I would have said, fellas, let's not change anything. Let's not drop anybody's connection during this time because I'm going to do a webinar. But the sharks in the ocean can still cut the cable and can cause damage. So I can't assure you the sharks are not going to be hungry and they're going to chase and bite my internet cable, which runs across the earth bed there, right? So there are certain things that we need to, that we can say we've created a favorable environment in which we think something can work. Now, coming back to software, the whole software is born out of somebody's vision to solve somebody else's problem. So a customer has a problem A, they have a behavior A, and someone thinks that this software can change the behavior and solve the problem A. And that's how they build software. And that's the reason why they come up and build software. Okay, fabulous. The people who attempt to solve the problem, the people who try to understand the problem, and the people who build the team to solve the problem are the people who are actually building the environment in which quality happens. The word happens. Quality happens. If you have to assure quality, if there are just few people to assure quality, then quality never happens. What happens is heroism. And a hero can always get tired and the villain takes over, which has happened in many, many cases in software, that heroically, there were some people, there were teams making it work, and then their heroism dropped because they got into fatigue. And then the software started picking up all kinds of issues. So the people who are building that conducive environment in which people can happen, I'm gonna talk about them. And there's a reason why you need to know about them, because you might grow up to be them. Right? So now, okay, here is the company structure. No matter how flat they are, no matter how flat the hierarchy is, in terms of decision making, there is a hierarchy. In terms of getting, in terms of, being able to move across, there may not be a hierarchy, but there is certainly a decision making tree. There's certainly a flow of information, that happens. So the C-level folks are primarily responsible for setting up the culture. The C, the CEOs, the CTOs, the CPOs, the COOs, the CXOs, the CIOs, whatever, right? They are largely responsible for setting up the culture. So instead of chief executive officer, I think the chief should be replaced with the culture, the word culture, because they are playing a very significant, important role in building the culture of the company. Why do we, I mean, there is a tendency for all of us that if something goes wrong, and if the CEO is available on Twitter, we want to tag the CEO and say, dude, look at your company. Dude, look at your company. What's the poor CEO doing somewhere sitting, right? And the reason why, for instance, when somebody reports something like that to me, I look at it as a cultural issue rather than, oh, this thing should have just not gone wrong for just this person. Okay, because it's the culture that drives these problems to the grassroots level. So the C-level folks play a very important, significant role in defining a quality or defining the culture of quality in itself. I have worked, or I'm sure even you might have worked with some companies where the C-level is saying, okay, we're here to make money. Let's make it really fast. And you will see the whole company has a certain attitude, like they're all having that same hunger. It's what matters is money. What matters is money. What matters is money. But yes, the good news is we now have a generation of entrepreneurs who are saying, I want to be passionate to solve customers' problems. And that's only when I can scale faster, which is great. But how many times have you and I failed to translate intent to reality, right? All of us at intent are very good people, right? But where does intent go wrong? Intent goes wrong in execution. So many of us find it very difficult to translate our intent into reality because of various constraints. Now, even if they want to build a very passionate culture of quality, where quality happens, their investor might be driving faster growth than what is possible. In that case, if the entrepreneurs oblige to the request or to the pressure of their investor, then they would put their car to a certain gear when it's not ready. Now, I'm sure each one of you have driven a two-wheeler or a four-wheeler, a manual one. In case if you're born in the automatic era, that's a different story. But if you have driven at least a bike, at least a a scooter, a bicycle with gears and things like that, what happens when you shift to a gear when that necessary momentum or the acceleration or the RPM is not there? Your vehicle can stop. And that's essentially what can happen about quality when people try to force fit a gear, forced to move to a faster speed when they're not ready for it. The vehicle starts choking, the engine starts choking, and the engine starts struggling for a bit. That's essentially what happens. The C role people and translate their intent into reality by hiring the V folks. The V folks are the VP engineering, VP products, VP X, VP Y, and all of that stuff. So the VP engineering folks are the folks who are the transformers of the intent to reality. Now, if the CTO is under pressure or if the CPO is under pressure, that culture seeps into the VP. And from the VP, it goes into the architects and the directors who are the next layer. So the VPs, again, break down the intent to what is executable into a high level. They work with the architects and they work with the product owners to translate, to define the product and to define the design and what the architecture should be and things like that. and then leave it to the D level folks, the D level folks. So who are the D level folks? D level folks are the directors. So you would have heard about, director of engineering, director of QA, director of that, director of this, director of testing. So then it translates to them where they have charters to accomplish. So there are quite a many directors in the company who are having certain charters or certain key components of the software to deliver. Then these the D level folks either have a manager or a lead, depending on the size of the company. And till the role of manager, these are the people who are largely setting up the environment, setting up the culture, setting up bringing in the right kind of people or the kind of people that they think is right for this kind of an environment. So these people largely contribute to creating the environment in which quality is going to happen. Let's pause here. Let's not go further down. I believe most of you who are listening to this are going to be engineers, hands-on. So you need to know the role of these folks who are actually setting up the environment in which you are doing the work. So these folks, if they set up a bad environment, you can't succeed in it no matter what your skills are. Or you might be learning those fabulous new tools. You might be a Python expert at doing certain things and writing some beautiful scripts that actually automate a bunch of things. Useless. If the environment is not favoring you, it's absolutely useless. It's like this. You are a great. Let me give you this example. I want to give a sports example, and I was thinking about cricket, but then if there are people outside India, they may not be able to relate to cricket as much. So I have to use I'm going to use 2-3 sports examples or the sports analogies. So first, of course, I will talk about cricket. If I don't talk about cricket, then even the people outside India won't believe that I'm an Indian. So I'm going to talk about cricket. You're a fabulous batsman. You're ready to hit a century, but it's raining. You can't even see the ball. It does not matter whether you are ready for the century or not. Okay. Now, you're a fabulous batsman, but the pitch made is not suiting for batting at all. What can you do about it? There are the best of the teams and the best of the forms who get all out for less than 100 runs. Okay. And the other team comes to bat and they are also not able to score that. So we've had teams with that have won a low scoring game, because the pitch is not suiting you. So it's very important that we have to look at the environment. That is it conducive for quality to happen? Now, these people, the C level, V level, the architects, and the D level, and the managers have various pressures depending on the culture set. If the manager is being pressurized by the director to get some things done at a certain time because their incentive is linked to a certain deadline being achieved at a certain time, you poor engineer, you can't do anything about it. You absolutely can't do anything about it. And I am also going to share with you real stories of my interaction with some of the CTOs. Unfortunately, I can't name them because they shared something in confidentiality, and I can't share who and what, all of that stuff, right? So one of the CTOs that I spoke to, were saying, hey, Pradeep, we know to get better quality in software. We absolutely know how to do that. But
it's 5:30.
We are pitted against a certain competitor who is also continuously getting funding and growing faster. And we want to grow faster than them. So our product owner thinks that we need to match the features that they have. Now, it's not advisable to do that, but there are people who can be pressurized by trying to compete, and because of that, they want to put out features super fast, super fast. Now, even if it's not that environment, I want to share this, incident to people even outside of India. A few years ago, the Indian government suddenly demonetized, a 500 rupee denomination note and a 1,000 rupee denomination note, and said, okay, these two notes are no longer valid. And they did this for whatever reasons, and this caused a havoc. So there can be government regulations that change overnight, which can also cause people to put out changes rapidly, like what happened with the GST system in India and things like that. So it's not just competitors who might be causing this pressure. There might be government regulations causing this pressure. There might be various things causing in pressure. Now, if you have a certain approach, to testing software, that approach to testing software may not work in a certain context. Now, let's say you're saying, oh, we have all new features covered with automation, and no feature goes out unless all the tests are green. Great, but there are contexts where you won't even have time to build those tests. So what are you going to do in those things? And if you have not built the muscles to suit that kind of a context, suddenly shifting gears again is going to be a challenge. But anyway, I'm going to move away from you and go back to those folks. The C-level folks are constantly under various kinds of pressure, and they may have a good intent, but unfortunately, not all of them may be able to translate this into reality. And here's another interesting thing I want to share with you of my experience of working with Motorola. Motorola, is a large company. They had in 2000, what was that? 2000, and I'm an old man. So this was about 2005-6. They were one of the largest companies. They were the second largest selling, mobile phone company. Even prior to that, the Motorola chipsets was massively used. And this company had budget. This company had money. And I was testing in their lab. And in the lab, we had simulators and emulators and all of that stuff. But the number of people, the ratio between simulators, and these are simulators which require hardware. It's not software simulators. This required hardware and software. So the number of the ratio to the number of people who had to run certain tests to the available hardware available, it was not matching, and we had to book slots. We had to book slots to run our tests, and we were under time pressure ourselves. Now, I'm sure this was escalated, that hey, there's insufficient times and all of that stuff, but there was no approval of the budget. There was no expansion of it. So what can a poor engineer like me do? I can't do anything about it. I have to rely on my lead. I have to rely on my manager. I have to rely on my director. I have to rely on my VP to communicate this to somebody in C-level that, hey, the Bangalore division needs much more simulators than what we are having right now. And here's the cost versus value. And at that time, I didn't know even to communicate cost versus value. So essentially, we were testing under these constraints, and what the hell am I going to assure you of? I can't even assure you that I am going to run all the tests that I'm supposed to be running. So it's fabulous, right? Okay. So like that, there are these pressures that they may have, which can come back and create an environment in which there's no budget availability, there's a pressure to go faster, and all of these things. When that is happening, what the hell are you trying to do to assure quality? It's like if I was in Motorola trying to assure quality at that time, I have to say, I assure quality. I'm going to buy this 1 crore, 1 crore worth of simulator, and I'm going to install it for myself, and I'm going to run all my tests. I'm going to have all the patients to run all those tests. I'm going to dedicate this machine for myself, and then I'm going to assure you that in this simulator it works. Fabulous, hilarious, right? So to me today, if I were to go back as an engineer and work, I'm going to interview all of these folks, and I'm going to see, are these people under what kind of pressure they are, what kind of culture they are setting? Is quality ever going to happen no matter how much heroic efforts that I'm going to put in? And then I'm going to determine, is quality going to happen? And then I'm going to decide how much effort do I need to put in. Right? Because that's like the most efficient way of deciding whether should I even put in any effort or not. Now, the good news is that there are a lot more entrepreneurs these days who are becoming aware of this, because a lot of engineers are graduating to entrepreneurs. A lot of engineers are graduating to product owners. A lot of engineers are being empowered to actually go build products of their own. So there is a conducive environment that's creating, but there are pressures beyond them, beyond their skill set, that is going to come and affect the way the quality happens. Now, here is another beautiful example. There's a company based out of Singapore. No, it's not. It's not our friend's company. There's another company which grew rapidly. They started acquiring a lot of companies. Unfortunately, I can't name that company as well. So they in the mid of 2020, in the first pandemic, first lockdown wave, and all of that stuff, they wanted to talk to me and seek some consulting. So their problem statement was this: our quality practices were in great shape. We were doing really good. Every engineer we hired understood the practices, and we were getting good quality out. Now we are getting poor quality out, and hence we require a lot more people, a lot more QA engineers to prevent that bad stuff from happening onto our customers' hand. But even despite that, a lot of things are failing. And this is a unicorn. This is a decacorn, maybe, right? And they grew rapidly. And here was the missing piece. They had every, if you bring in all the world experts of how to write clean code, if you bring in Uncle Bob and you read that book about clean code, if you read the book of lessons learned in software testing, everything that is mentioned as the right practices in their context, they were absolutely doing it. But here is something that was out of their control. They grew at such rapid pace, and they had not built training mechanisms when they are onboarding large teams, a lot of the engineers they hired slow. So there was time for tacitness. There was time for pair programming. There was time for people to pick up those practices by pairing up with people. But when they grew fast, when they hired hundreds of engineers, they did not have a training mechanism. They did not have the time to onboard them properly. Like they wanted an engineer to be up and writing code in 2 weeks time after they've joined. And prior to that, it took 1 month for an engineer to start writing code in that company. And this was reduced to 2 weeks, and this was reduced to 1 week. Like, you can come, we'll give you a rundown of all the architecture and all of that stuff. And here are some code that you can reference, and and then they start saying, okay, here's a sprint, you're going to get on to the next sprint, and things like that. What do you think even the engineers can do? So if there is no sufficient training and onboarding mechanism, and then what happened is that the people who were following these good quality practices were about 50 people, and then they hired 100 engineers. Now the 100 engineers brought in various different types of quality practices from the different companies that they worked, and the culture of the whole company was dominant with that culture rather than the culture that was followed. And boom, it went. So for me, I said that if you believe that you're going to scale further, if you're going to hire another 200 engineers, instead of doing anything else, you should be building your training mechanisms. You should be building your onboarding systems. Now look at how simple a lack of onboarding, a lack of proper training mechanism can affect the quality of software. Now, you and I, as so-called QA engineers, are we going to go sit and build training mechanisms on how to onboard, developers so that the code quality can be significantly improved? Or we are going to run a test and say pass and fail, and this is a bug and this is not a bug and things like that? What are we doing, right? There is like you're saying, I'm gonna prevent I'm going to prevent a leak in a dam, right? And you're trying to put your finger inside, and there's a huge hole that even if you get 100 people, they won't fit into that huge hole. If you really care about, fixing it, you have to go back to about the way the dam was built. You have to look at the people, their motivation, where they underpaid, and where they stressed so that they were not able to concentrate on the job. So it's a massive cultural, environmental, multiple factors that actually contribute to building a quality software. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm going to correct myself again, not building quality software. Quality happens when these environmental factors are conducive. Okay, so that's level one. Now I'm going to go to the leads, the seniors, and then the engineers. So based on this environment, the leads come in, and the leads have a certain responsibility. It's not just to get things done. I'm talking about tech leads more so than engineers. I'm sorry. Okay, than the managers or the team leads kind of people. I'm talking about the tech leads. But the tech leads have certain thing to be done. Look, let's say they want to build a feature. Now, and they're building something on the front end. And then front end is a beast. Now, the reason why a lot of developers that I've interacted with loves backend, they're like, oh, this is so beautiful. This is so beautiful. The reason is also because it's a little easier than the front end. A little easier than the front end. In front end, it's a beast. Having worked with some of the Unix folks, the Linux folks, they are better off building things that work on command line than to build something on the GUI. They hate it. But if they're But if the situation is that they have to build it, they will of course build it, but they hate it. Okay, totally. So I've seen the best of the developers complaining something about the front end, and they're all happy with the back end because it kind of behaves the way they want it to behave, at least to a
It's
better degree
5:45.
of extent than compared to the front end. So if there's a tech lead on the front end, and there are certain dependencies on the third party APIs that they're integrating with, which they're not in control of, or let's say the architecture. Now, here is another thing about the tech folks, right? The tech folks are highly opinionated folks. By the time you convince another tech person in your philosophical way of thinking of tech, you would have wasted a lot of your time and their time as well. But sometimes, okay, I would say arguments become very exciting that we forget the purpose of why we are there. And I've seen this happen in the tech space quite a lot. So for a lead who is, let's say, under pressure to deliver something by some time, and they have to assume that the architecture is fine, or the architecture is going to yield what they want to build on top of it, right? So essentially the lead is going to operate in such a way that the architecture is fine. Now, what if the architecture is not giving the yield that this developer wants? And this gets filtered on to the seniors and the and the engineers. So the people who are actually doing work in any organization is are the leads, the seniors, and the and the engineers on the ground. It's too late for any of these folks to fix quality. Too late. They at best can do what's in their code, in their capacity. They can't. I have hardly come across people who have actually done that, and I've listed that in my blog. I see in my interaction that I had with Pooja Shah, what she has done in Mo Engage really inspired me. And she said she's had conversations with the CEO, with the CTO about the way things should happen and the way things are happening right now. She's understood their context, and she has tried to build a team in such a way that it is conducive for quality to happen. And there are other examples, other people examples I've listed, and I've seen this being done. And I think that is inspiring, but that's happening in pockets. And these are people who are really not doing this because they would get a promotion or a hike or something like that. They're not doing this to fancify their resume. They are doing this to build a very conducive environment for quality to happen, right? And yet they might get a pushback from the CEO or the CTO for various reasons, because they may not be able to communicate the pressure or the environment in which they are all the time. Like, for instance, one of the product owners that I worked with was extremely tensed all the time. Why? Because his growth was linked to certain things happening, and he desperately needed that growth. And every bug that prevented him from achieving his so-called objectives, he was a very short-tempered person, and he screwed up the culture of the team. And so what would a really good product manager, a really good tech lead do in this situation? I've seen them just soak it in and say, dude, it's you who's the problem. Even in very good companies, right? Even in very good companies, and this is what I believe, that you're actually not working in the company. You're working in the company of the people. It's not the brand name. Let's say, be it Moolya or anywhere else, right? It's not the company, because there'll always be pockets of people who are good and pockets of people who are not good in any company you take, right? So, but that person, that leader, sets the culture. what's say of the team. So it's very important that even if you're a good person, you end up with someone who is not going to create that conducive environment. Your skills is of waste. It's just about maintenance work, and the best of the engineers that I've worked with don't want to do maintenance work. Right? So so essentially, okay, what's looking at is that these leads and seniors and engineers are too late in the cycle to do anything about the overall product quality. Yes, they can do something about their code quality. They can do something about putting questions up front, asking that under these constraints, saying that okay, these are the things that's possible, not committing to a whole lot of stuff. All that stuff is within their environment, it's within their control, is within their commitment. But if you talk about product quality, what are we talking about? There's so many other people who have already screwed it up. What can you do about it? Now, either they've enabled in some fashion and disabled in other fashion. Now I'm not painting a picture that everybody above the manager is actually doing bad, right? There can be various constraints for them. So it's not like they have a bad intent. As I told you, intent to reality is where people actually struggle. Everybody, whether you're an entrepreneur, you're not an entrepreneur, you're a QA engineer, you're a developer, intent to reality is where the maximum efficiency drop is. After that is just a minute efficiency drop once you start to do it, right? So it's essential that now for the poor engineers like you, like this world is absolutely fascinating. Do you know who is so stressed about quality in like a bunch of organizations? The poor guys on the ground. They don't realize that the quality culture is not present even for them to do anything about it. They feel guilty as though they put the bug into the code. I would like, now I know I'm talking about certain kinds of culture. The good news is in the world there is an evolving culture of okay, everybody owns quality, which is true, but there is a flaw in that sentence as well. Everybody owns quality in disproportionate ways. Everybody owns quality in disproportionate ways. Now, if I'm a CTO and I'm working with a QA engineer, the QA engineer and me have disproportionate contribution to the quality. I can't say, I made this architectural mistake, and now that QA person is equally responsible because he should have told me, or she should have told me, or they should have told me. No, right? It's there is disproportionate ownership of creating the conducive environment for quality to happen. Now the poor engineers today are sometimes made to feel. Now we all talk about QA engineers. I'm telling this to you. The best of the companies that say that quality is everybody's responsible also have this role, QA as a role in the company. What do they mean by that? What do they mean by that? I'm not becoming suspicious. I'm not becoming skeptical. I'm just trying to find out what do they mean by that. I want to understand what they mean by that. I really want to understand what do they mean by that. QA is of course quality assurance. So what do they mean by that then? If everyone's responsible for quality. So I would like to believe a company that says everybody's responsible for quality, if they don't have a title or they don't hold some people accountable for it. Now, if you're already there, what can you do? Right? Now you understood the problem statement. This is a pandemic. We have been living, the QA engineers, the testers, that's what we actually do, are living in a pandemic ever since the start of their career. And poor folks, they don't know to complain. They don't know to communicate this to the world. Don't worry, I'm doing it on your behalf. And there are many good people also doing it. And you also should do it. But Okay, now I'm going to come back. What can you do? Look, I want you to have, if you want to just have one takeaway from this whole 1 hour plus that you've been watching, there's only one. Testing does not mean quality. You get this. If you're testing, it does not mean you're doing anything to quality. You are testing. Okay. So testing does not directly contribute to quality. Okay. One. Okay. The second thing is this. Second thing is, what can you do? You can influence the culture. Look, there are countries like India, even a country like US, went through a lot of changes. Today we are living in the generation of Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. Making persons of color, becoming a better inclusive world. It all started with someone and a bunch of people, influencing the world to change. What Mahatma Gandhi did for the Indian struggle of freedom, and many people like him, of course. What Martin Luther King did, what Nelson Mandela did. They all did not change anything directly, but they started influencing people to think, to rethink. If you want to be in the role of quality, you should understand that the best that you can be is to be the role of a quality influencer. And as a quality influencer, there are different kinds of skills that you need to pick up. Don't learn Selenium and say, I am a QA engineer, because that's got not do anything, right? For you to become a quality influencer, the kind of skills that you need, you may need a lot of different kinds of skills. There may not be a lot of job roles for that, but there's still certain roles for that. There's still people who are getting largely recognized, for being the quality influencer. And they create the change in the culture. They talk to people. They say, hey, this is causing pain for all of us. Do you really want this pain? And then people who had good intent will realize, oh my God, I don't want to cause this pain to people. If you don't want to cause this pain, this is the decision you have to make. And that is how, so that's one level of skill. Now, knowing how to talk to them, what to talk to them, understanding their context, being able to understand what they're saying is all one set of things. Okay. The other set of things is you also have to be a generalist for you to be able to connect with different people. If you're just obsessed to just learning testing and you don't understand about other roles, it's very difficult for you to be able to influence people. When I was doing my training for freshers, people who were freshly passed out of college, I was training them on testing. I had a 1-month program. Here's what I would get them to do. First, I would get them to build a product, build an application. Unless you build that, you will not know the pain. You will not know what does it mean to write that line of code, make that assumption. Now, for us as QA engineers, we are not being exposed to building. We don't know about money. We don't know a whole lot of stuff. We can't assure quality. We can't even become influencers of quality because we don't understand others' context. How can you influence quality to people where you don't even understand their context? It's important for you to, like you all say, oh, I work for stakeholders. Who are your stakeholders? What do they need? Like, for instance, I had a product owner, talk to me and say, okay, Pradeep, look at this bug report. It says expected API response, actual API response. What am I supposed to do with this as a product owner? There's no mention of the word risk. What is the risk? Is this like super risky? Is this something I can ignore? Is this something I need to prioritize? This QA engineer is not telling me anything, but it's very suitable for, let's say, a developer who says, great job, thank you very much. But if you really want to build a culture of quality, you have to be able to communicate and do all of that stuff. So that's essentially where you may want to build different kinds of skills. Or if you want to remain just a tester, I'm saying just a tester. That's fine. Okay, there's nothing wrong in it. Then you got to be clear. I'm not assuring quality. My job is to do two things: focus on test coverage, build tests, and I was about to use the word ensure, but I'm not going to use it. And review constantly if your tests are useful or not. This is all. Of course, ask, to get there, you need to ask questions, you need to have risk assessment, you still need a bunch of things, but hey, you're not assuring quality. So please don't connect yourself to quality. If a customer appreciates, I love the quality of this product, don't take credit of it. Equally, if the customer says this is a shitty product, you also don't take credit for it. Be happy in your life, because you're not assuring quality. You have no power to assure quality. You just focus on the test part and say, I'm going to give the best of the test coverage. Okay, that's the best that you can do, and you do that, and then there are still things that can go wrong, but that's not in your control. So either if you really want to pick up a quality role, then after becoming a specialist, become a generalist, do other things, experience what pain the C level, B level, D level, and the M level go through. Okay, also about what the tech people go through, what the product teams go through, what the business teams go through. Then have a fair understanding. Then start influencing the culture of quality, where it becomes easy for a skilled engineer to produce good quality code. Okay, so you're doing testing, you're not doing anything related to quality. With that, let's move on to any questions you may have. And I request my team to also put the names of people asking those different questions so that I can say, hey, so here's the first question that has come up. What is the importance of quality audit in testing? Good. So generally, right, okay, audit happens after somebody has self-certified something. I'll give an example. Okay, companies go through audit. When is it audit ready? When is a company audit ready? Is when the accounting team has said, we have pruned through these accounts and we think that this accounts is clean. That's when the audit happens. So like that, I'll give you an example of a quality audit in the testing space. There is something called release readiness test. It's like this: I have tested everything, but hey, look, my top 80 customers, okay, top 80% of the customers use these two devices, and these are the 6 flows that they do in this environment, right? So running through that after somebody has said yes, they've done it, is like an audit. But rather than saying audit, right, I think for quality software to happen, there needs to be multiple levels of the safety nets built. So rather than using the word audit, which looks like an assessment against what somebody has claimed, I think we should look at it as another safety net, which kind of either reconfirms certain assumptions or the beliefs or the results. So that's where the quality audit and the testing actually comes into picture. And there is also other contexts where okay, here's another context. Some products are actually certified. Like for example, right, when you submit your medical software, okay, for an FDA approval, you will be saying, okay, I ran all of these tests and these are the results of this. somebody from the FDA will be running the same stuff to do an audit of, are you claiming, is the result consistent to the claim that you're making? So that's another context in which the word audit is relevant and used. Okay, what should be the long-term goal of a QA engineer and what are the future opportunities? Okay, fabulous. The long-term goal of a QA engineer, after this you're saying QA. Okay, I got it. What is the long-term goal of a tester? Okay, so now some people, so there are multiple paths. You can stick to being a tester and look at becoming a test architect who prevents bad test value culture in the company. Now, I'm not just saying about functional tests, I'm talking about even unit tests. I'm talking about not just front end, I'm talking about back end, I'm talking about the whole piece. So that's that's the path A. Path B is that if you are really good at writing code and you are passionate about writing unit tests as well because you understand the value of it, then you could go become a developer. Or, okay, let's assume some of the testers that I've seen have understood so much about the domain or the industry that they pivot from being a tester to a business analyst, which is another opportunity of growth, and then from BA to a product manager and to a product owner, and all of that stuff. So there is a, or you could become a trainer and create good passionate testers. So there are multiple, or get into business, or build a testing tool, like what Sanjay is doing. There are examples of all of this thing. If you talk about those who build business, it's people like me and Henrik Anderson from Sweden. We were hands-on testers, passionate about testing, and build companies. If you look at some like Sanjay, he was hands-on, passionate, and started building tools, and now he's doing that. And then you have people like Mahesh, Chikane, who was actually building a test community. So there's so many examples of all of these people. You just have to look around and you will be exposed to a crazy, interesting variety of decisions people have made in their careers, from QA to something related to QA, right? The other question comes from Saurabh Silori. Is quality measurable? If yes, which all factors to include? Okay, so I'm going to use this classic, definition from Jerry Weinberg, which was then improvised by Mr. Michael Bolton. It says quality is value to some person who matters, and then the extension to that provided by Michael Bolton is that it's for us to figure out who matters and what matters to them, right? So quality, you can, quality can also be quantified, but it will be a minuscule way of it, right? And there are about quantifiable parameters. There are objective things about quality, and there are subjective things about quality. You can put metrics to the objective things about quality. You can also put some kind of metrics to the subjective thing. Okay, for example, I'll tell you what Google did for the Android ecosystem is that if you have built and published an app, you'll know this. They indicate on production how many phones have crashes for your app. Now, some companies that are that we have worked with have a quality goal that the number of crashes should not be more than 0.4% of the whole users. And for actually somebody with a large user base, they can say, okay, our app should not crash to the 99.9% percent of the users. Okay, the other way to define it is also to say that so crash is what's a one kind of thing. If you want to build that, then you have to look at the memory leaks and you have to monitor all the calls and what happens when there is a bad response and things like that. So there are these quantifiable things about quality. There are also a non-quantifiable things about quality. Okay, which is about different people come from different backgrounds and they may they may struggle with certain kinds of usage and user experience. And unless you know that, you will not be able to do that. But right now, I see one of the things to actually plug even that hole is is where you build the observability into the software. Like for instance, for the apps that I have built, we have the observability tools, which tells me how people are interacting, are people achieving what they have to achieve, with the software, and if they're not able to achieve, where are they getting blocked, and all of these aspects of it. So we can quantify it, but we can't completely quantify it. Okay, next question. From someone named Infused Wolf. I like the name Infused Wolf. How would we ensure that our testing is complete and has good coverage? Oh wow. Complete testing. If you define a complete testing, if you can say, okay, for example, if I cover these six devices, okay, then it's complete testing. Okay, then you can achieve complete testing. But it's a myth that you can actually do complete testing. It's people talk in conversation. It's like, hey man, it's like, oh yeah, I would have done that, right? It's like a very hypothetical, but it's not reality. Okay, good coverage. Now that's something you can do. You can say, look at this. Okay, here is the analytics of how our app is actually being used by our customers and users. There are 67 devices, out of which these 20 devices covers 80% of the people. Now we need to test on these minimum of these 20 devices to at least have a device coverage, sufficient device coverage. Don't call it good test coverage. Call it sufficient, test coverage, sufficient enough that at least 80% of the people, we'll be able to understand the context of at least 80% of the people, at least 80% of the phones, not necessarily the people, right? So if we have analytics, if we at least can actually, understand the analytics and say, these are my top 5 use cases. These are the devices. Okay, these are the contexts. These are the networks. Then we can arrive at what seems to be sufficient coverage. Okay. Sai Vidya Swaminathan says, what is the earliest phase in the software development lifecycle from which testers can involve themselves to add value to the resultant quality? Okay, this conversation, this question was asked when I started my career and will be asked when maybe 15, 20 years from now. So the problem is not about when should they start. The problem is what will they contribute? I worked in a team where all the testers said, hey, we have to get involved in the requirement definition phase. Okay. They went and sat into that meeting and they didn't know what to ask. Yes, I understand. Initially, it was all about listening, but then the questions, need to be value contributing, questions at that phase. Now, I'm not saying please only ask intelligent questions. Please always ask questions that you want to ask. Don't hesitate. Whoever, whatever, it's better to lose a job by asking a question than to stay in a job by not asking questions. Okay. So what I would say is, what value can testers contribute? If the value thing is there, then it's about presenting the value and delivering the value. So today, a lot of people think it's fancy to get on to this thing. And also, here is the thing. in most of the modern day software, development, product development, right? The testers are a part of the grooming session that happens between product owners and engineers. They're part of that. And those who contribute value in that meeting are much, much more welcomed into that meeting. And those who are not contributing to that meeting, they're just there to take notes, or they're just there to just listen, or just to be a participant in that meeting. It doesn't add value to them. So rather than saying, where should the testers be involved? We should be asking, what is the value can we contribute? Okay, for example, let's say, the CEO is making a decision about, about a new product line similar to the existing product line. What can a tester contribute there? And that's why I'm saying we have to build a variety of roles that we have to play in order to be able to arrive at contributing value at various contexts. Right now, our context is very limited to test coverage. Of course, we also do something about the requirements. We have of course pointed out that there is a missing requirement. This is wrong. This is this can lead to bad things and all of this stuff. But it's very, very localized, very limited. If we want to expand beyond, then we have to go beyond. Like, for example, how many testers are willing to work in customer support for the next 1 year so that they can gain deeper context about the product and the users and what kind of issues? If we move a tester to a support role, even if we give a promotion hike, blah blah blah, whatever, many people will quit and go, because it's ultimately they're not chasing value, they're chasing job. But if somebody is chasing value, if somebody is chasing impact, then 100% they would already be contributing to various levels. Okay, with that. Oh wow, here comes a question from someone who I think I know. My grandfather, Robert Sabrin, Rob Sab. Okay, hi Pradeep, can you share some insights into how testers can influence quality by continuously getting feedback and acting on feedback and providing feedback? Nice talk. I have a new granddaughter. Okay, Maya, nice. Okay, congratulations, Rob, for becoming a grandpa again. Okay, testers can influence quality by continuously getting feedback and also providing feedback. With that, I've been talking for 1 hour and 17 minutes. I'm gonna sip some water. Okay, so here is an important question, testers need to ask to various, stakeholders. What have I done that really impacts you, that impacts customers, that impacts users? What have I really done? Like really, okay, tell me that one thing I did which really impacted, and maximize that. So that's one example. Okay, the second example is we also need to provide feedback. I think I did a session about the art of giving and taking feedback. I think I need to do that again. Okay, but here's the thing. We also need to provide feedback about testability, of saying, hey, these components were really testable. These components were not not really testable, and this is how it impacts me to care for our customers and for our users. Okay, the other question, okay, that you can ask about, in order to get the feedback, is about saying, what's the best case, scenario? Okay, given this kind of, situation, what would the best, okay, tester in this team actually be doing? What if we did not have any of the testers? Okay, that's also a good question to ask. What if we didn't have any of the testers? Okay, does it mean this company is going to get, disastrous? The customers are going to abandon us and things like that. So there are a variety of questions that we need to objectively ask. We need to And the reason why a lot of people don't ask these objective questions is because it's difficult for us to remove ourselves, from the equation. Now, okay, feedback does not mean. Now, Rob, I know I'm actually digressing a bit, but there is a human emotion that's very, very important, to play. And the reason I'm actually telling this is this. I'm going to give you an example. I'm sure you've watched the movie, Sully. Okay, Rob, the role played, by, okay, Sully was actually Tom Hanks. And in this, okay, movie, in the climax, he says, the human factor plays a critical role, okay, to what actually happened. And that's so true. Now, even if I give a good set of questions, the human factors are the reason why these questions will never be asked, okay, because they fear that if they, if actually somebody, what it tells you that you actually did not add any value at all, you might feel so bad about yourself. So that's one of the reasons why they don't tell you the reality. But in case you go and tell, like, for example, here is one thing that I do to my customers. I say, look, Pradeep is a super strong guy. He can listen to the fact that he's an idiot, he does not know anything, and still be calm and peaceful. Okay, given that I am in this Zen state, what feedback do you have for me that we can really use to provide value to you? So that is essentially what we need to do. We need to remove ourselves and be able to ask the questions. Now, given the time, I'm going to not go further detail, but I encourage people to watch the movie Sully, and then you will understand about the skill factor, the consistency factor, and and then the human factor as well. Okay, Nikhil Mathur says, are QAs responsible to resolve production issues? So the culture of the company can make QAs accountable for it, but it's essentially everyone who need to take responsibility of that. So that's what I've been talking about for the last 1 hour plus, that the culture drives the quality. If there are too many production issues and somebody is being held responsible for that, the person holding that other person responsible is the actual culprit, or okay, his or her boss. So yeah, okay, Brajesh Yadav says, what technology, tool, programming knowledge should a good tester should have? Okay. What technology, tool, programming? Hey, it's very contextual. All right. And the definition of a good tester. Okay, so that's important as well. Now you might be a good front-end tester. You might be a good back-end tester. The kind of skills that a good front-end tester needs, the kind of a good functional tester needs, the kind of skills a good performance tester needs, and tools, and all of that is going to be very different. So once you determine what you want to be good at, then the rest of the things align. So you don't need to worry about tools and technologies and all of that stuff, as long as you know what value do you want to create. Okay, let me ask you this question back. What value do you want to create? Okay, dude, you know everything, right? What value are you going to create? What experience are you going to bring to the customers? What experience are you going to bring to your own team? So all of these things are going to determine the choice of tools or technology or anything. So yeah, so that's what it is. With that, are we coming to the good end of this session? And if you have still stuck on, my gratitude to you, my prayers for all our well-being. Thank you very much for spending this time. I'm going to do more sessions and more webinars and all of that stuff, and I look forward to continuing to talk to you. And the next time you will be inside this call, and you and I will be having a voice conversation, not like you type somewhere and it comes to me. You and I will be having a voice conversation, and it would be less of a monologue and more of a dialogue and all of that stuff. So that's where we are. Thank you, namaste, gratitude, and I'm going to end here for today. And I'm going to possibly, thinking about Rob Sab, I'm going to sip some wine, and end this day in a nice way. I wish you all the best. I will continue to answer your questions. You can post it on Twitter or on to LinkedIn, and I'm happy to connect to you on LinkedIn, and or you can follow me onto Twitter if you think I'm making some kind of sense. I'm mostly active on LinkedIn, and I hope this helps you. And if it does help you, please do let me know. If it does not help you, remember Pradeep is a guy who can take any kind of feedback and not feel bad about myself and still continue to work on it. So you can tell me what you want to tell me, and I will still be happy, nice, and I'll be a good friend to you. With that, thank you very much. Have a fabulous evening, or a good morning, or a good afternoon. Bye. See ya.